I first met Dianne probably in the late 80s, and she was the horse show manager that everyone was a little bit afraid of.
I know one very famous professional from California that arrived for the first time, and Dianne marched right up to him, and she had her fiery red hair. She said, "Let me tell you something, this is how we do it up here."
She runs a tight ship. She's not hardly ever in the office. She's out there at the rings, looking at her watch, telling the back gate people, what's holding this class up?
I think some people took offense to it to start with.
We were getting on a plane to go to Seattle to the Evergreen Classic. And my son says, "Who's the horse show manager at this next horse show?" And I'm like, Dianne Johnson. He goes, "Oh, I knew it. She is so mean."
I manage 8 shows in the Northwest, and I steward 8 shows in the Northwest and in California, and sometimes back east.
I remember the first time we went to this horse show, they had this pro medal class. It's basically a spoof off of the equitation, but everybody dresses up and they do a skit. So what I remember is one of the professionals doing their skit dressed up as Dianne. And they come in on this horse galloping around the ring, throwing prize lists out to people and saying, "Get your entries in on time. There's going to be late fees, no exceptions, no post entries." So that was kind of the whole persona.
They think she's really tough, and she's not at all. She's very sympathetic.
Over the course of time, I've gotten to know her pretty well. She is always a go-getter, always so interested in the next Seahawks game, the next USHJA board meeting, where our association is going. She's really such an interesting person, and I really enjoy her. But it took probably 25 years of knowing her before I knew that she ever rode, let alone was a famous rider.
I went out to get my horsemanship badge in the Girl Scout troop, and one thing led to another, and I ended up going out and cleaning tack and mucking stalls to go ride for an hour, and it evolved from that into crazy world. My grandfather bought me an Anglo-Arab, half thoroughbred, half Arabian, gelding 16-2. Its name was Rayhax Rawan, and I showed it English, Western, open jumper, trail. I showed it in every class that was imaginable, and that's how it started. The second horse I owned, I bought out of the school string, and he was 15-2, half Percheron, and he's the one I won the World Championship Jumper Sweepstake on, and he basically was a freak. And then I bought a gray horse, a thoroughbred, that ended up showing in the Confirmation Hunters and the Open Jumpers that both the American and Canadian team tried to buy in those days, but I was too much into winning blue ribbons that the money didn't mean anything to me. And then I had a horse called Ebony Witch that was half thoroughbred, half Percheron that I did a lot of winning with. When I first started to show, they were local shows. We had classes bareback jumping, pair jumping, riding 4 abreast. We did a lot of different things which actually made you a better rider that were fun too. At first, I just in the state of Washington, and then branched out showing in Calgary, Portland, Oregon. They used to have horse shows on the racetrack, California, so pretty much all up and down the West Coast and into Western Canada. My mother was very deeply involved, as a mother would be, and she would go to all the horse shows. My grandfather ended up buying a stable quite close to the one where I learned to ride for my mother and myself. And so that's how Sterling Stables evolved. I trained horses, gave lessons to kids, had a couple of school horses. In those days, you were asked to show a lot of different horses, so I showed hunters and jumpers and Arabs and Morgans and saddlebreds and Appaloosies and whatever was available. Actually, I did the Western horses for relaxation to get away from the hunter and jumpers. Did some cutting horses, did a little bit of everything. I had children all the way from 8 years old to amateurs in their 60s. In those days, we didn't have the classes divided by age like we do now. The horse shows were all breeds, all disciplines, and we all showed together. And we had a lot of trainers in those days that were real horsemen, that could do things with horses that were just amazing, crazy things that we would never think of. And it was always a treat to be around people like that. Jean Lewis was originally from Boise, Idaho, so we competed against each other in the Northwest for several years. One year at the Pacific International in Portland, Oregon, we were jumping off in a puissance class, and we ended up at 6'9" tied because I couldn't go any higher. He was a wonderful horseman.
To see these pictures of her, oh yeah, I won that Cow Palace Grand Prix 5 or 7 times in a row. I'm like, okay, but she never bragged about anything. People would talk about themselves and she would just be listening and so interested. That's the very fascinating quality I find in Dianne, is that she is so humble and so interested in everyone else.
My husband, Johnny, he had a stable in Portland, and my mother and I had one here in Seattle. We were competitors. I thought he was a playboy with all the girls. He thought I was a brat, and we were both right. Didn't really like each other competitive-wise. And then one night we went to a party, and he kind of looked at me, and I looked at him, and 6 months later we got married, and we're married for 36 years. We ended up with quite a large stable.
They had a fabulous string of horses. They were a team to be reckoned with.
And then as we progressed, Chuck and Barbara Bearley and Johnny and I decided we were going to put on a horse show. So we did, and it evolved into the Evergreen Classic premier horse show. It went from there to doing a lot of horse shows now.
We went to horse shows that she produced, and they were always very well run. She always hired the best judges. There was no messing around. It was first class.
The horse show in Bend has been going for 26 years. It's on the property of a school for troubled boys. The boys actually work the horse show, and then they have a counter school for girls, and they work the horse show also. On Saturday we have a Grand Prix, and we try to have spectator exhibitions so that it's entertaining for somebody that is not even in the horse industry. I think we've turned a lot of horse shows into what I call factories. We need to make them special. I think we need to get more of the general public involved. I don't think we're very good at publicizing what a wonderful sport we have. We kind of keep it amongst ourselves, and I think we should be out involving people to come see what we do.
The professionals in that area really credited her with the quality of the horses in that area and the quality of the riding and the overall business because of Dianne Johnson. And how many horse shows do you still go to where the exhibitors are greeted with exhibitor bags? Not in the office. She drives around in the golf cart, hands the trainers, thank you for coming, here's a bottle of wine and a welcome bag, and by the way, I have free lunch for you today. So you feel really welcome when you go to her horse shows.
I think that it brings me satisfaction that I can be part of an industry that's been so good to me over all my years. I don't think I've missed a USEF, USHJA, AHSA convention dating back to the 40s. That's a long time. After Johnny and I sold the second stable, we looked at each other one day and we said, now what are we going to do? So we went and we learned how to play tennis and golf, and consequently joined a tennis club and made a whole new circle of friends that I do travel with. And then I have my, quote, horsey group of girlfriends that I travel with.
All this traveling is really Dianne Johnson's fault, because she asked me a long time ago if I would ever do something besides going to horse shows, judging, teaching, buying and selling. Would I take a trip? And I said I'd love to go to Dublin to watch Molly ride for the USA. And that's all it took. And then we traveled straight for like 7 years in a row.
And that was really the first time I got to know her not in the horse show management world. Totally different person. She was laid back, she was fun, she was whatever you want to do, I'm game for anything.
The best trip was our trip to Africa a year before last. It was an absolute thrill of a lifetime.
No matter where we were in the world, she had to ask people if they had a Seahawks hat on. Oh, are you a Seahawks fan? I'm from Seattle. So we're like, okay, Dianne, that's enough of that.
She's very kind and loving. She worships her dogs.
Come on, Bubbles, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up.
She is probably the best friend a person could have.